How often do you think about the Oscars? About how many Oscar-winning films there are and how many you've seen? Yeah, there's a few famous Oscar-winning films that we've all seen. You know, The Godfather and Lord of the Rings and Titanic. I'm King of the World, all that stuff. But the Oscars have been running since 1927. There are currently over 1,000 films, feature-length films, which have won an Oscar. How many have you seen? I did the numbers for myself. It's not many, and I consider myself quite a movie buff. So here then is the premise of this podcast. Every episode, I and a rotating cast of two guests will randomly select one of the 1,000 films that have won an Oscar, watch it, and talk about it, with the only requirement being that one of the three people on each episode has to have never seen the movie before we talk about it. That will get difficult with Star Wars. Please note that our coverage of a movie does not constitute an endorsement of it. My least favorite movie of 2016, David Ayer's Suicide Squad, won an Oscar for Best Makeup, while my favorite movie of 2016, The Handmaiden, wasn't even nominated for anything. Please also note that our coverage of a movie is not a blanket endorsement of any or all of the people involved in it. A lot of terrible people have won Oscars. Kevin Spacey won an Oscar 20 years before he was outed as an abuser, and Roman Polanski won one 20 years after. But every film, good, bad, or in many cases mediocre, that has won an Oscar is an important part of film history just for being there. And they all, on some level, deserve a tiny bit of consideration, even if that consideration ends up concluding that it's garbage. And with all of that in mind, I'm your host, as always, Ellie McConaughey, and with me this time is Justin Franklin.
Oh, debating which romantic language I'm obsessed with, Justin Bailey.
And Matt the movie guy.
I really should get into cycling.
We should all get into cycling. And we are here today to discuss the 1975 comedy drama sports movie, Breaking Away, won Best Original Screenplay at the 52nd Academy Awards. And, yeah, Dennis Quaid's in it. He looks distressingly like someone ran modern Dennis Quaid through a de-aging filter a few times.
It's almost uncanny how not changed Dennis Quaid looks from 1979 to now.
Yeah, he's just gotten older. It's one of those things where like his face was always like rock and like granite like, so like there wasn't really much more to make wrinkly, right?
I mean, like he's had something of a year, Mister Quaid, in both Reagan, which I've heard is unwatchable, and The Substance, which I've heard is great. I haven't gotten the chance to see either. So, you know, I don't know what we're gonna do with Dennis Quaid.
Dennis Quaid is one of those actors where like he's in like 5 trillion films, so it's hard for me to like narrow down like what his thing is. Like there's some actors where like, oh, like he's in these kind of movies, but like no, Dennis Quaid's just in anything.
Mm-hmm.
Like most maybe more dramas, but like again, it just like, oh, this one's a contemporary drama, this one's in space, this one's in.
So, like the Nicolas Cage of drama.
Well, to be fair to Mr. Quaid and to Mr. Cage, I don't think Dennis Quaid is anywhere near the actor Nicolas Cage is, and I'm not being sarcastic. I think Cage is a great actor.
No, that's what I'm saying. I think Dennis Quaid is good when you know how to use him.
Mm-hmm.
And in this movie in particular, do they know how to use him? Wow.
He is surprisingly good in this. An actor with a much shorter resume, but I think a lot more like impact when he does show up is also in this movie. I was like watching, like, oh my god, that's Jackie Earle Haley.
I know, right?
He's like the opposite, where like it took me a bit to remember that that was even him.
Mm-hmm.
Like he looks so much different young. Like maybe it's like a face structure thing, maybe it's just like the way that the stuff I've seen him in always has him in like 6 feet of makeup. But yeah, Jerky Girl, yeah, well, right.
He's a surprisingly versatile actor when he wants to be. He's in, if I'm being for real, and I know that like I'm gonna get some opinions about this if this particular clip like leaks out into the wider internet. He is the Watchmen movie is not good, but he is good in it. He is a good casting for Rorschach.
Hmm.
Similarly, the Nightmare on Elm Street remake is not good. He is a good pick for Freddy Krueger. And I don't know, I really like Little Children, but I understand that's not everyone's bag.
Hmm.
Yeah, Little Children's got a lot of baggage onto it.
It does.
It good movie, very weird premise.
To ruin my credibility immediately, I've always liked the Watchmen film as an adaptation. I think the choices it makes to bring the film to, well, bring the book into a film makes more sense. Like, I always thought the plan in the film makes more sense than the one that's in the comic. Because it's like, what is an entity that people find dangerous in this world? Would it be Dr. Manhattan, which is an entity that they're aware of, or randomly aliens from the eighth dimension teleported in the middle of Times Square and killed everyone?
Mhm. I don't think that like I don't have a huge problem with the changes they made. Okay, rephrase that. There's actually a kind of like a specific thing that I'm trying to say there. I don't have a problem with the changes they made with the plot. I just feel like I okay to try to head off some people who are being in the comments, and this is not what this episode is about. I don't think Zack Snyder is a bad director. I just think he is in a way very similar to Michael Bay. He is a slave to his eye. He cannot shoot something without making it look really cool. And I really feel like it's so inappropriate for Watchmen as a story that it takes me out every time. This is not the point. We are here to talk about Breaking Away.
The exact opposite movie where it's like really small and grounded and in the middle of Indiana.
More stuff should just happen in the middle of India. I say that like I went to Indiana last year for a wedding. Fine state, not my bag. No, but like I was thinking of how to summarize the plot, like in a single sentence, so that people who haven't watched it can have like, and basically it's just like four teenage boys on their last summer before they turn 19 is the I think that's the age they're at.
They've graduated high school.
And one of them's obsessed with cycling and also Italy, because I think because he won an Italian bike or something is the implication or the statement.
I honestly thought it was a girl for a while because of the ending,
Mm.
but where it's like, was there like an Italian girl like right before the movie started, or
I mean, like he sticks more heavily. Like one of the recurring plot threads in audience is like he introduces himself to a girl like with his Italianisms, which are very cartoonish, in a way that the movie is absolutely aware of. And she like thinks he's Italian, and he just sort of goes with it.
I I'll be on that hill where I don't think she bought it. I think she just humored him.
Well, like I thought that for a while it might turn out that she didn't buy it or she was aware and she was just like enjoying the fantasy, but she gets really like genuinely upset when he reveals, no, I'm just a guy from Indiana. Incidentally, a recurring element of the plot of this movie is that like this town in Indiana is now a college town, but previously it was devoted to stone cutting. It was an industry town,
Mhm.
and so they call people from the town cutters. Apparently, in real life, they're called stonies, but they didn't want to do that because it was too close to stoners.
I love that.
Yeah, there's a few times where they clarify it. Like even within the film, it's like you're not a cutter. I'm a cutter because I was a quarry person, or like they try to clarify. Oh, he's a townie.
Hmm.
It's just like the whatever pejorative they feel like using for the people who've been stuck here rather than being there on purpose.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. For the first couple of minutes after they first start introducing the concept of the cutters, I was like, is this like some 70s curse word that's like out of fashion or some sort of slur? And then you just realize that, oh, that's just their word for townie.
Yeah, that's all it basically is. But I will say that because they keep referring to stone cutters, my brain, like for the entire back half of this movie, my brain was playing the stone cutter song from that episode of The Simpsons
Me too.
in my head. Yes, we do. Who robs cavefish of their sight?
We can't afford that.
Who rigs every Oscar night? We do.
We we can't afford that.
I'm singing it. We're not sampling anything. Come get me, Matt Groening. I own. You have $1 billion and I have nothing.
um, but yeah, there's just like a lot of verbiage in this movie, and I'll I'll give myself away here for in a second. I don't consider myself old. I figure if you take a look at me or like knew my actual birth date, I don't think of myself as an old person. It seemed like there was a lot of old words that I literally just had to stop and look up. Where it's like, okay, there's a slur for for Italians that I've never heard of, but the dad keeps using, and I'm like, okay, okay. Is that like some white bread Americana thing, or is it a him thing? I'm still not sure.
I mean, like this is one of those movies that turned around very quickly. It was written in 78 and shot in 78. So I feel like a lot of it is very, part of the advantage of movies like this. And I said this about the other movie I'd never heard of from the 70s. It was also just a very small scale, very quiet, very low stakes movie, which is Harry and Tonto. It's really good look at how people were feeling in this exact moment the movie was made.
Mhm.
Okay, I could buy that, sure.
It is one of those things where mm, let's see, he was like 50. He said he's 50 in the film, so it is one of those things where Italians being considered white is relatively recent culturally. So it is one of those things where, in between the span of that guy's lifetime to now, it's not even like a question that they're considered white versus back then when it was still like, I could imagine a Midwest person, what, he's not a wasp.
I mean, like the other thing that sort of struck me. I don't know if the movie ever goes into this, but it's like one of those things that might be worth keeping in the back of your mind if you want to like forgive how unceasingly racist against Italians the main character's dad is. If he's 50 years old in 78, he was born in 1928. We went to war with Italy when he was like 13 years old.
Yeah,
That doesn't make it okay, but
like you know where he's coming from.
yeah. And like I don't know, America has such a weird relationship with Europe, and it's like and part of what struck me about it, and this is what strikes me about the end, where like the main character has abandoned his obsession with Italy to to become obsessed with France instead. I don't think he likes Italy. He likes the conception of Italy as a free place where he can be himself or whatever.
I really want to say something right now, and that it's gonna get me in trouble.
Just say it. If it's bad, I'll edit it out.
I can't. I'll tell you when we're off the mic.
A So a recurring theme of the film, if we're talking about themes, is basically the same theme you see in any film that takes place in the Midwest, is that the Midwest is deeply, crushingly boring, and everyone who lives there doesn't want to be there. And there comes a point in their lives where they have to sit down and realize, oh my God, I'm trapped here for the rest of my fucking life. And Dave's response to this is to like accept like this what exoticism of Italy, whatever,
Mhm.
and all the other characters in the movie just have this gradient of like how willing they are to accept that this is the rest of their lives. Like Cyril, played by
Daniel Stern.
Daniel Stern, his character and Mooch are probably the most like willing to accept that it's just like, yeah, we're born in Bloomington, we're probably gonna die here, shit happens.
Mhm.
And Mike is closer to Dave, where Mike wants more out of his life, but he also feels trapped. And then Dave is exceptional in his athleticism, so he feels he has the space to, yeah.
I did really like, Dennis Quaid, whatever I think of his politics, is very good in this movie. All four of the lead kids are extremely good in this movie, if I'm being real.
Yeah,
But like I really liked Dennis Quaid's little monologue about how like he's gonna keep getting older and older and more broken, and the new he was the high school quarterback, the star quarterback, and the star quarterback is gonna stay the same age because a new one comes up every year, and I like that. I like the detail that he has a pack of cigarettes in his speaking of the Simpsons, in his snake from the Simpsons, on his arm, but he can't bring himself to light it because he's like, I have to stay in shape for football. those are very. There's a lot of in the writing of this movie why I think it won the Oscar it did, which is best original screenplay. That feels very small and very intimate and very human. I especially like it when just the four kids are like bouncing off each other because it feels like a very lived-in relationship. You know.
It almost feels like a hangout movie, like something like Linklater wouldn't do for another 20 years.
Mhm. Absolutely, like the flip side, the darker side of I'm going to keep getting older, and the high school quarterback is going to stay the same age as that quote from
Dazed and Confused.
Dazed and Confused. Yes, I love high school girls. I keep getting older. They stay the same age.
And I mean, it's less gross and more sad here, but
Yeah, that is a gross line in the movie. Is Linklater is a good director. He knows it's a gross thing to say.
but yeah, it's just what I loved about these characters, like I think we brought it up a second ago, is that literally just about any character you could pick out any character and just have a movie be about them.
Hmm.
This is the one that just happens to be about Dave.
Yeah, Mooch is like playing a sped run version of like I don't know The Graduate. He's just like he gets married off screen. Like
He does.
his friends don't give a fuck about his life, and they're just like, "Oh, you're married now, cool." And then they don't see that much.
He's like living in his parents' old house where I think at one point it's kind of implied that the electricity got shut off and he's just like, okay, that's fine. He doesn't he's probably the most minor of the characters, although I do there's a couple of recurring bits where he hates being called short and he starts a bar fight because of it.
That's what bugged me too. I was like, is he really that short compared to the other guys, or the other guys just tall, absolutely tall?
He's pretty short. I'm gonna look. Jackie, Earl, Haley.
Because it's like I could buy that Dennis Quaid is tall. I could buy that Dennis Christopher was tall.
He is 5'5".
Oh wow.
That's pretty short.
And it is one of those things where like they keep he is reasonably short, like shorter than average, but he's also next to Daniel Stern, who's fucking massive. He's next to Dennis Quaid, who's massive. He's like, and they keep hiring these people who are like a foot taller than him, or like a head taller than him at least. Like in that bar fight, there's like what 9 people around him, and like every single person is like at least shoulder height above him.
Hmm. He's also like, I think, don't quote me on this, but like I think I looked at the actors like wiki pages just like get a sense of it, and I think he was younger than the other three actors.
Yeah, it was like 17 when they shot this.
Yeah.
I could buy that.
Or like you have the bit where Daniel Stern, like Mike's brother is like a cop in town, and so like he always feels the need to make sure that Mike is kind of a hothead and isn't starting shit with the college kids. And like they just have this aside where it's like, hey, how you kids doing? And he just immediately leaves, and Daniel Stern's like, oh well, I'm concerned about things in the Middle East, and oh yeah, you're gone. Yeah, like they don't really care what these kids are doing. They just like you're adults now. It doesn't matter what you think, and also you're kids, so it doesn't matter what you think.
There are a handful of moments in the film. Like I thought the film was very funny and very charming throughout, but there are a handful of moments in the film that got like a real full-on out loud laugh from me. That was one of them. I'm looking through my notes to find the others. Oh, Dave, try not to become a Catholic on us.
That was that was that made me laugh too. I was like, is it racist? Maybe, but or maybe not racist, but discriminatory, maybe. But the delivery of that line is what sells it.
Look, as someone who was baptized Irish Catholic, in case you can't tell from my last name, I am extremely Irish. You can be mean about Catholics. It's fine. They will be fine. They have a giant palace made of gold.
I know. I've seen the Vatican too.
They just had a new movie all about let's make this one priest in charge of our giant palace made of gold. It's actually pretty good. Conclave's pretty good. Everyone go see it.
Well, you got to give some. You got to wait for the Oscar special, Ellie.
That's honestly like unless A24 this is slightly off topic, but I guess it's still on the top of the office. Unless A24 actually like nuts up and does a proper for your consideration campaign for Love Lies Bleeding or I Saw the TV Glow, which they should literally like hours before this recording, I saw on Blue Sky that Martin Scorsese said that like his favorite movie of the year is I Saw the TV Glow. But unless they bother to do a proper 4-year consideration campaign for it, I can't think of what else would win. Like maybe Dune 2.
And we'll be right back on Hollywood politics.
I mentioned this in the last episode, and I will mention it again and again, over and over. And I say it in the intro, like Oscar wins are not really a mark of quality, or even like my personal taste. As I say in the intro, my least favorite movie of 2016 was David Ayer's Suicide Squad. It won an Oscar, best makeup and hairstyling. My favorite movie of 2016 was The Handmaiden. Didn't even get nominated for anything. Oscar politics are bullshit. Go see I Saw the TV Glow and have a gender crisis.
Okay. But that year, that Oscar year, if we're going to go on to that,
I do like to do that.
that was like a banger of a year.
Yeah, it was. There was a lot of good stuff nominated that year and winning that year. Kramer versus Kramer was the big winner, but we also had like All That Jazz, Apocalypse Now, La Caja Falls, Former Ray. Uh, okay, we also had Manhattan, so it wasn't all great. I don't like Man. We'll get to Woody Allen some fucking day on here, but I just
I do have my Woody Allen favorites. Manhattan isn't one of them.
yeah, even when I like admit that Woody Allen is a good writer, which unfortunately he kind of is, I didn't like Manhattan. I've never liked Manhattan.
I will give you this. I will give Manhattan one thing,
Fire away.
and you can cut. You can keep it. You can cut it. Do whatever you want with it. It shoots New York very beautifully.
It does. With the best movie of the year, however, was only nominated in song score and original song and didn't win either, which is the Muppet movie, of course.
Well, yeah, you could give that to like they're throwing a bone to the weird experimental stuff.
The best original song nomination is always a weird place. I'm going to say the title of the song and the title of the film and ask if either of you have ever heard of them. The song is Through the Eyes of Love from Ice Castles.
I know what Ice Castles is. I've never seen it.
Okay. Justin?
Oh no, never mind. Left now.
Okay. That was nominated for Best Original Song. Apparently, Ice Castles is a romantic drama about skating.
And this is a coming of age film about cycling.
Well, that's the thing. Like, it's not really that much about cycling, at least partially because of what I said. Like the stakes are extremely low. Even when he has his required third act, like falling out with his friends group, it's not like, oh, we're not friends anymore. It's just like we're a little pissy at each other. It's fine.
Or or even like yeah, they have like this bar fight, like they shatter a window and all this other stuff, and the most trouble they get is basically a slap on the wrist and say, okay, like you guys probably shouldn't be antagonizing the locals. We're gonna open up the race to the locals now. Eat shit. Uh,
It was kind of fun that like the reason they get to race in the little 500, which is the big like 200 lap bike race that they race in at the end of the film, is literally because the dean is like, "Hey students, you fucking shitheels, stop being assholes to the people who live in this town. They're gonna race in it now. Shut the fuck up."
There's this line that the lead preppy guy, the lead of the fraternity, were we using the word preppy? Probably.
You can use preppy.
yeah.
We put up our middle fingers at them.
Says, but sir, they're not good enough. And he says it in the most whiny tone. And I had to react. After I finished laughing, I said something that I can't say on the air. But essentially, it was grow a pair and deal with it.
You can say whatever you want on the air. I say fuck every other sentence on here. The kid animated feature aside, the Oscars are broadly speaking usually, if not adult movies in the way that like, I mean, Midnight Cowboy won a bunch of Oscars, but like also they are movies for grown-ups. No 14-year-old is gonna be like, let's go see Kramer versus Kramer.
I miss that time.
I do miss when there were like good budget movies for adults. Maybe we should go see Conclave because that might bring back like adult dramas.
I mean, if you want to fly me to New York, we'll set something up. But
It is also funny So obviously it's a sports film from the 70s, except for the one that people always think he wins in. You know, they have to win.
Hmm.
Yeah.
But in real life, there is a little 500 in Bloomington, and there is a cutter team, and also they're like the most consistently winning team in the in the fucking league.
Hmm.
Which leads me to the question: Is did this movie inspire them or get them started?
Other way around. Apparently, according to the Wikipedia page, I did not research this extensively. I don't usually like. I'm supposed to be just talking about the movie. I don't usually do a massive amount of research. But according to the Wikipedia page, it's it was based on like the actual time when they started letting locals participate in this thing in like the 60s. I mean, it's very clearly in love with the town of whatchamacallit, Bloomington, because like it was apparently all shot on location in Bloomington.
I know, right?
They slap up a thanks to Bloomington over the end credits.
On location shooting, I missed that too.
I missed that too. Yeah.
Yeah, you have people. I didn't watch many of them, but I skimmed a few, and like you have people kind of doing the touristy thing where they go to Bloomington, they try to find the filming locations and
Hmm.
do that sort of stuff.
Mhm.
Apparently, it's both. So it is based off a thing that happened, and then after the film came out, it was popular, so Bloomington started doing that anyway.
Mhm.
Uh, the power of art, people.
We were talking a bit earlier about shots, and like one of the things that I had forgotten about the film, I had seen it once in high school, is just how often in the film they'll just let things like they'll just do it in camera, or they'll just like, oh yeah, sure, the guy's just really fucking athletic.
Mhm.
Like all of the biking seems legit, all of the stunts seem legit. They don't cheat very often.
I quite liked during the big final. So the Indy Little 500 is a bike race, a 200 lap bike race, and like 200 laps is like I'm telling the audience is a lot of fucking time for anyone to be biking. So like they have teams and they swap the biking out. I really liked the shooting on like how they swap the bikes in and out, or like they shoot the final, what is it, 3 laps as one long unbroken shot just circling around the track. And I really like that. I really like this emphasizing how God, how exhausting that must be to do.
I know, but there's something exhilarating about it where it's like, you know how it's going to end because it's a sports movie, but it's like, oh, damn, is he going to make it? Is like,
Yeah, it's and it must be incredibly hard. Like, you hear that, you hear about how they had to have like walkie talkies on set for Lawrence of Arabia for that really incredibly long shot of Lawrence riding at the camera. I can't imagine how many times they had to like practice. Like, okay, you were riding around the track and you need to start letting the person who's playing the main character pull ahead at this point in order for it to be dramatically satisfying. That must have been difficult.
It is kind of funny the way that the friend group is looking at it though, because when they're trying to convince Dave to join, because at that point he's dejected because he realizes that Italians are all cheats and scammers, right? But he my dad was right. No, no, no. But they're basically coming to him like a ringer. He's like, no, dude, like it doesn't matter. We'll join. We won't bike, and you'll just win because
you're that
you
good.
are just better. You're like,
He is like he is again. I don't know shit about cycling. If you listener are listening for the moment where I suddenly admit that I actually am really into some sport, you're you're gonna be waiting a while. I occasionally watch women's soccer. That's about it, for gay reasons. And but like they sell that he is an incredible physical athlete really well. Like we were talking earlier, you and me, Justin, about the scene where he's drafting behind the semi on the highway.
I know. It's just like you don't know which part of that is. I don't want to say fake, but like, how much of that was legit?
I mean, like if I went over the footage with this is one of those things that I say about a lot of movies, and I'm going to use like a lot of great action sequences. People bring this up with the Force kick in Return of the Jedi, or a lot of stuff in the Throne Room duel and the Last Jedi. Oh, if you slow it down and go frame by frame, this and this and this don't make sense. I could probably do that with this and figure out where they're cutting, figure out where the seams are, But like, I don't watch movies frame by frame. Does it feel good in the moment? Does it feel right in the moment? Fuck yeah, it feels like a great scene.
I mean, he's racing a semi.
Yeah, I'm like, my only guess would be the stuff where they keep cutting back and forth between him, like, immediately behind it, like when the camera's like right there,
Hmm.
is like, they probably did that a few times, yada yada, but like the long shot when they're like 500 feet away and they're just tracking the semi and the bike behind them, like, no, they just did that shit. Like,
Hmm.
and they were going about as fast as they were saying, like, like, back of the hand stuff, like they're crossing telephone poles every like 2 seconds or so, right?
Hmm. And Peter Yates, who directed this, he's obviously like he didn't like do a massive number of famous movies, but people have heard of his shit. Like a lot of nerds really like Krull. I've never actually seen it. He did Bullet, which is a great movie.
Awesome movie.
He knows what he's doing when it comes to like, and I feel like one of the things that people sort of forget when it comes to shooting sports scenes, and this is why I think a lot of sports movies are kind of boring, is like in a sports movie, your sport scenes are your action scenes. Essentially, you have to treat them like an action scene, and they do. They do
And what a hell of an action scene.
exactly.
It's just like I want to bring up something like we're talking about like we're doing this legit and of course the time period. The amount of times Dave falls off the bike. He should be dead, right?
Probably.
I mean
He's wearing a helmet though.
like
I mean, you say that, but like he does get injured frequently. Like, could he have been more injured when they threw a fucking thing in his spokes? Probably, but like, even in the last race, he like eat shit and like they immediately like, could he have continued after that? I mean, he did, but again, like the injuries that he sustains don't seem like unbelievable or like he's made out of adamantine, right?
I have this principle in movie criticism, which I don't know if I've ever come up with like a full written out definition of it, but broadly speaking, I call it the falling down the stairs idea. Basically, if you fall down like a flight of stairs, you can be totally fine, just like a couple bruises and some nasty spots, or it can just straight up fucking kill you. And like, so when a writer has someone fall down the stairs, it is 100% up to them, whether or not that's going to do to the person falling down the stairs. And so it really just comes down to the director, you know,
What the film is, yeah.
yeah, making it feel believable. Like, and you can go too far with that. Like, I go back to that one fight scene in season 2 of Daredevil where like he spends 45 minutes talking with the Punisher about how he doesn't kill some people, and then like 20 seconds later he's like wrapping a chain around a dude's neck and yanking him over a railing to fall head first onto a concrete stair. I'm like, no, that guy's dead. You killed that guy, Matt. He's just dead.
I don't kill you, but I will put you in traction for the next 8 months.
So it just comes down to like, does it feel right? And again, like it felt fine. I've fallen off bikes, maybe not going that fast because I can't go at 70 fucking miles an hour like this kid can. But I've fallen off bikes before, and I walked away from it.
yeah, I know. I thought for a second, like, is this kid like Superman at one point? I'm like, how far is Kansas from Indiana for a second? Like, you can still see the hair poking out of the helmet. I'm like,
Well, if he's Superman, those are poor substitute for Ma and Pa Kent.
Yeah, his folks aren't they're trying, by God. They're
I will say I mentioned this to Justin in front of before the episode when we were like chatting. So the two other major Oscar nominations this movie got are one is Best Picture, which that's fine. Lots of movies get nominated for Best Picture, and the other was Best Supporting Actress for his mother, for the main character's mother, and that one confused me a lot.
I thought it would have been the dad.
The dad, yeah, that would have made more sense because like the dad's a much bigger character. One of the kids getting nominated would have made sense. She has like one pretty good monologue about how she keeps her passport on her the her entire time because she too is trapped in this small town and dreams of getting out, but like she's also accepted that that's just not going to happen for her anymore. But like aside from that, she's mostly just hanging around in the background making occasional snarky remarks.
Maybe they like snarky remarks.
I guess who else was nominated for supporting actress that year? Well, the winner went to Meryl Streep for Kramer versus Kramer.
Okay, so everybody's losing and they know it.
Yeah, someday we'll get to the Academy's thing about Meryl Streep. I have some thoughts on the Iron Lady. Other nominees were Jane Alexander, also for Kramer versus Kramer, Candice Bergen for Starting Over, and Muriel Hemingway for Manhattan.
I'm honest. I I wonder who, because there had to have been like some punditry going on. I mean, not as concrete as it is now, but I was like, who would they have bet against Meryl? But who would have been the opposite? Would it have been Meryl Hemingway because Manhattan was that big of a deal, or would it have been?
I mean, she's the actress Barbara Barry is not like a hugely famous actress. Aside from this, I think her most famous role is she played. Was it the main character? No, it wasn't the main character. She played a major role in the adaptation of the Bell Jar from the '79,
Mhm.
but she's not really like she's around mostly a stage actress or a television actress. Oh my god! Oh my god! Oh my god! Is this the third one? Oh my god! This is yet another Oscar-winning film that I've covered on this podcast that got a TV show follow-up. Ah,
I was wondering when we were going to bring that up.
I'm so happy. Oh my god. What is it? This is so good. Jackie Earle Haley returned because he wasn't she is one of the she and Jackie Earle Haley are the only actors who returned.
Well, TV's a good gig.
I'm so happy. I'm so happy. We don't we don't fucking get enough. I'm so it's such a weird collection of movies to get like what do you mean? In the heat of the night got a TV show. I'm sorry, I got completely off track there. Let's talk about the dad. The dad has my favorite speech in this film.
The one where he's trying to put up his spirits.
Hmm. But it's not even like a very how do I put this? It's not even a very get up, son. It's more of a you mentioned it earlier. He has that line about you're not a stone cutter. You're not a cutter. I'm a cutter because I actually worked in the quarry.
Hmm.
I like that moment as like a you know you need to grow beyond me, kid moment. It's a good moment.
I like that monologue in general because it does sort of feel like, I don't know, a good summary of what the film is generally about, or at least it captures that sort of Midwest, again, being trapped here. Like,
Hmm.
we saw it a bit earlier with Mike's monologue, where like he is like almost indignant that they would call him a cutter because it's just something else he's never got to be.
Hmm.
And in this, he's sort of like lamenting. It's yeah, the quarry jobs went away, and I had to make the choice, and all the buildings got put up, and I wasn't let inside.
Hmm. Yeah, that's one of those moments that comment where he's like, I cut the rock for this college, and but I don't feel like I'd be accepted in it. That's a really I don't know. There's something to that.
Exactly. That's what supporting actor monologues are made of. So I'm just shocked.
Truly, it is the life of a prole to do the labor that builds the towers. They aren't let inside. Truly, we must, as one, rise up against the bourgeoisie yuppies.
Hmm. And now we're gonna go ahead and talk about how this movie is, secretly a communist manifesto. No, we're not doing that.
Something I will say about the we don't really get a good sense of the jerk yuppie characters in general, but I do think it's nice that they gave a few moments to show that they're not like malicious. They're just sort of dickheads.
Yeah.
Like there's a scene where he and Dennis Quaid are like Dennis Quaid challenges him to a like a race, a swimming race.
Hmm.
Like, he's like the star guy on the fucking swim team, so like yeah, he wins easily.
Yeah.
But like Dennis Quaid is like so caught up in it that he hurts himself, and like the guy just is like, whoa, like, you fucking okay, dude. You almost see him like want to go to try to help him,
Hmm.
and like he doesn't know if he's supposed to, and like even in the end, like after they lose, he's just kind of like, oh well, I guess we lost. He's not like bitter about it.
Yeah. He seems like a. I. That's another thing that makes the movie good. Like the college guys are antagonistic dicks, but they don't feel like cartoons. I will say, I said she doesn't have much screen time. She doesn't really do much in the movie. But on the other hand, we are, what is it like? This is 79, so like 3 years out from the shortest performance to ever win an Oscar at this point in Oscar history. That's Beatrice Straight in Network.
Mhm.
Hmm.
Great movie, great performance. Someday we'll talk about it.
Hmm.
True.
I keep saying someday for all these movies. Like there's even a chance in hell to get through all. What is it, like 1,100 movies?
We're, we are like, what? This is episode, what, 18, 19, something like that?
16.
16. We are like, we are at least 1% there.
We are 1% there. Yeah, I'll give you that.
Here's some hope for you, Ellie. In the auditorium where the Oscars are held, there are pillars listing every Best Picture nominee. They have enough space on those pillars for 2071.
I mean, like that's sort of the other half of like we'll never get through them all. Okay, I do what is it like 24 episodes a year? Okay, average Academy Awards award 11 more movies, so I'm not even getting through them that quickly.
Well, I mean, at least you only have to update your list once a year.
That's true. And I'm not actually upset. I like having movies to talk about, which we should probably get back to talking about this one. I'm trying to see if I had any more thoughts I really wanted to share. Oh, there's my other out loud laugh when, for reasons that are no mostly to the screenwriter, they decide that Dave's parents are having another kid, and Mooch is having dinner with them, and he's like, "Oh, I didn't know old people still," and he like gets a threat. It's very funny.
He's like, yeah, like the last thing you say, or the next thing you say could be your last. And I'm like, good for you, Dad. Wow.
They don't movie doesn't really go into it very much, but his dad's kind of like a shady guy.
Mm,
Yeah, he sells these lemon, like, yeah, he's a failed salesman, and his car place is like, his business model is selling lemons to college students.
I did notice, and she's only in it for like 3 seconds, so this is entirely on me for being like this much of insane person. That was PJ Souls from Halloween in the sorority, the girl who gets strangled to death in the car,
or if you're cool, rock and roll high school.
or if you're cool, Rock and Roll High School, which I have seen. It was very late at like a double feature in a cult movie night, so I don't remember a thing about it. So they played a lot of Ramones songs.
I love rock and roll high school. But it's just, okay, so his business model is selling lemons, right?
Yeah.
Pretty easy to do in a college town. Can we talk about the refund scene?
Refund.
He has like a nervous breakdown when Dave gives the kid a refund. It is actually
It's like an existential crisis.
it's actually pretty funny.
Oh. I'm like,
I'm curious how long you could maintain that business model in a town like this. Wouldn't it eventually get out? Yeah, don't go buy a car from this dickhead. They're all shit.
they cycle out too quickly.
Hmm. Yeah, they'll want to move. If you're buying a car for graduation, you're moving away. You're getting out of here.
But watch there be like a group or something. Like a newsletter.
Actually, whoever I think it was Dennis Quaid who was singing in the opening scene.
Yes,
Surprisingly good singing voice.
there's a lot of singing in this. I forgot about that entirely. Like, there's that bit. There's where he's serenading Catherine.
Hmm. That was a good scene. It reminded me of 10 Things I Hate About You in a good way, and I like that they intercut it with like his parents getting romantic.
Another thing, since that song is entirely in Italian, it is also interesting that they never bother subtitling any of it. They just let them be Italian.
It is.
It's like, you are trapped. You either know Italian or you don't. Have fun.
I mean, like the vibe. You gotta get the vibes of it. If it's Italian. It's from an opera. I don't know which one though.
That's one of the ones they had on Looney Tunes.
Taking away opera song. Uh, Symphony Number 4. No.
That was one of the things I threw into my notes. I guess I can read it verbatim because it's more or less readable. The Daisy Chain of Culture. I associate a lot of the operatic music used in this film, not in the original context, but instead they're used in stuff like Looney Tunes, who, presumably, the people who made those works did so out of an appreciation of the original material, but also because the flow of opera lends itself to the flow of animation.
Hmm.
And here, the music that accompanies Dave learning his idols or cheating fucks is being used both, yes, because it is Italian, but also because of the same sense of movement. Like
Hmm.
the operatic music being used in this is used, yes, because it's Italian, but also like they're almost completely devoid of whatever context the opera has them in. He's listening to them because they are what they are.
Hmm. I mean, okay, for context, listeners, I went and found it. The operas from the songs from the Barber of Seville.
Yeah, I was right.
You're right that it's sort of like it goes back to what I said earlier. He doesn't really like, how do I put this in a way that makes sense? So I live in southern Connecticut, like right on the New York's border. I've lived in New York City a lot. I hang out there a lot. I have a partner who lives there. I work in New York City right now. And there is like I've found that people from other parts of the country have this like idea in their head about what New York City is like that very, very rarely actually lines up with your day-to-day experience of New York City. Either it's a Walking Dead style wasteland where every single person on the street is going to stab you and steal your wallet and get you addicted to heroin, or it's the city of dreams where anyone can make it, baby. If you just got gumption and a dream, and like no, for the most part, it's just like a city, but like really packed together, and that's sort of like how I feel Dave feels about Italy. He likes what it represents in his mind more than he knows or likes anything about actual Italy, which is why it's so easy for him to jump over to France in the final scene.
Well, the pretty girl helps. Certainly helps.
The pretty girl does help, yes, and the fact that he got cheated out of winning the bike race by Italians being dickheads.
I think they described it like the verbiage I usually hear it. What is it? Paris syndrome, right? They call it.
Mm-hmm.
You have tourists who go to Paris, and Paris isn't what they think of when they imagine Paris, so they feel this like deep, unshakable disappointment that it doesn't match the Paris that exists in their minds.
Mm-hmm.
And like, I mean, yeah, that's material reality, I guess.
I mean, I feel the same way. I live in Los Angeles,
Exactly.
and people think it's like we all go to the beach and we're all in like fantastic shape and we're just like the perfect people. And it's just like no, we're just a bunch of people just enjoying the sunshine, but we have shit to do.
I mean, like in addition to being living in and around New York City, I grew up in Anchorage. It's also a big tourist town, especially during the summer. And like my experience of that basically amounts to like people go to these tourist traps. They go on vacation to escape from what they see as like people and everyday life. But like people in everyday life are there too.
Exactly. Like, have you ever been walking down Hollywood Boulevard and have Spider-Man shake you down for money? I don't think so.
When I lived in New York City, I worked in Times Square selling comedy club tickets, which is by a pretty wide margin, my worst job I've ever had. And the guy in a Spider-Man outfit did threaten to knife me because I was working on his corner.
No, but those people are for the most part fine. But
Most people like people have problems with New York City's crime rate. It drives me insane because like have you heard of the concept of per capita, my dudes? Are there a lot of crimes in New York City? Sure, there are 8 million people in New York City. People are going to do some crimes there. It's lower than most smaller cities, but like for the most part, people in New York City are fine. They just want to get through their fucking day, same as all of us. Which is honestly, I think, kind of what the movie's about. Like most of the people in Bloomington are just trying to get through their day, and the main four characters haven't gotten to that point. We have that scene pretty early on where Mooch gets a job working at a car wash, gets insulted exactly once, and quits on the spot.
Don't forget to punch the clock.
And he does. Good for him.
that that's just a great gag.
well, even like and that's the sort of thing with like living in the I live out in the boonies. I've always lived out in the boonies, and so like it's somewhat difficult to get a job, and once you get a job, it's somewhat easy to keep them because again, it's hard to get them. So it's one of those things, but it's one of those things where there's just like this expectation of like they can just do whatever.
Yeah.
Like sure the kid was late, but it was also his first day, and they're like, he immediately starts talking shit to this guy and like insults him for being what he is, and like, yeah, of course he was gonna lash out like that, and it just, is it that difficult for him to find another wash guy? Probably not. But again, it's like where else is Mooch gonna go? Like, he has what, $5 between him and his wife.
It is extremely funny that again, like I liked Mooch a lot because he gets married, as you said, he gets married off screen, and honestly, he seems pretty happy about it. His wife seems nice. She also doesn't have a lot of screen time.
See, I just love this group of guys. Just like in big like friend groups like this or movie friend groups like this, where it's like you could buy like they're friends because the script told them they're friends and they don't seem to actually get along. But you could tell that this group of people at least likes each other a little bit, and if they hate each other, they're brilliant actors.
Hmm. I mean, like in my experience, and from my knowledge of film, you very rarely like being making a film together is such a long and complicated process, and you're stuck with this group of people for basically the entire time. The only way you don't like at least come out reasonably close if you're like one of the main four casts in a movie like this is if you are a complete piece of shit and everyone else hates you. And nothing I've heard about any of these four actors. Again, I don't agree with Dennis Quaid's politics, but I've never heard that he's a piece of shit who everyone hates. And it's like the Hobbits and Lord of the Rings. Like you're stuck together, so the actors are gonna wind up friends. Which honestly, that's kind of a good metaphor for small town friendships. Huh? Personally, I was gonna make a comment that like there's some debate about whether or not I was ever really a guy. I'm not this podcast is not about trans issues, but I was like perceived as a guy, and I hung out with guys in high school, and like this felt like very much like a high school friend group. Obviously not the same as mine. We didn't play a lot of Halo in 1979, but yeah, that's what I said earlier. It felt very small scale and authentic.
Yeah, and you're like earlier you mentioned like I saw the TV Glow, and like when I watched the film, like they have similar outlooks. Like I could imagine the main character from that film. You know, they are experiencing and are reacting poorly to the realization that they lived a life similar to what these people are presumably going to live.
Hmm.
They got bogged down into the mundane, the drudgery of day to day life, and it's only when you're taking the long view you're realizing and just like, oh wow, yeah, again, this is just the rest of my life. This has been my life, right?
But if I was gonna, I feel like that is one of the main messages of the film, and it's kind of filtered through the film in this case being I Saw the TV Glow. It's kind of filtered through the director's trans experience, and the advice I would give to anyone who feels that way, including all four of these kids, is the same one I feel like the movie in that case, and the I Saw the TV Glow wants you to take away, which is there is still time. Yeah, I don't know if I have anything more to say.
Yeah, a pretty good picture all around.
It's nice to find you know movies I haven't heard of before that are good, that are interesting, that are engaging, and I felt like I needed something a little bit light after the last couple weeks.
I mean, there's a obviously it's a comedy, but given the themes, it is somewhat easy to imagine it being a much more harrowing drama.
Mm-hmm.
Like I threw in the notes, it's like concerns in the Middle East, the Midwest tradition of slowly degrading the will of youth into a forlorn acceptance of life as suffering. The dreams of a better tomorrow are intended to keep you from completely losing it. people in their 50s who survived all that wondering what happened to the youth. 45 years and nothing's fucking changed.
Yeah, I was just thinking, is this like one of the lightest Best Picture winners probably ever?
Didn't win Best Picture.
Or Best Picture nominees, I'm sorry.
I mean, like some light movies win. You know, we associate the Oscars with like heavy subject because like we kind of, how do I put this?
The films are important.
Yeah, we kind of like think that the Oscars are important and important movies are heavy, and I disagree
So do I.
with that assessment very much. You know, I mentioned a couple episodes ago that like Parasite is a important movie with a lot to say about capitalism and exploitation and class consciousness, but it's also just like an absolute blast to watch.
But even when you look at this particular year of 679, where it's like it's going up against Kramer versus Kramer, all that jazz, Apocalypse Now, Norma Rae, like some pretty heavy stuff. It makes it seem like a
hmm I guess that like I guess I would say that like obviously lighthearted movies both get nominated and win. Like The Artist is an Oscar-winning movie. Shakespeare in Love is an Oscar-winning movie. Forrest Gump. Well, I don't know how to feel. We'll talk about Forrest Gump someday. I mean, like outside of Best Picture, you know, Miracle on 34th Street is is an Oscar-winning movie. You know, they do like to give it. You know, a couple years later, I think what's it called? Chariots of Fire won Best Picture. A couple years before this, Annie Hall won Best Picture. Of course, the year before this, directly before this, The Deer Hunter won Best Picture. So
the Deer Hunter, man.
Rocky won Best Picture in the '70s. Like they like lighthearted movies, but like it does feel like a bit of an outlier because it's just so small and so low key. You know, nothing. There's very little at stake in aside from everyone's pride in the final bike race.
Yeah, it wasn't even like money. Like he keeps winning these bike races, and again, there isn't like anything at stake other than he wants to prove how good of an athlete he is.
That's not completely true. There are trophies.
There are trophies.
hmm Unless anyone else has anything they'd like to add, do y'all have anything to plug?
I was gonna let Justin go first.
Fair enough.
Let's see. My plug for this week would be a patch you would apply to a bike tire.
I love you, Justin. I love you. Matt, do you have anything you'd like to plug?
I do. You can find me on Letterboxd at Matt the Movie Guy in the links below. I've seen a lot of sports movies lately. You can find out what I thought about them, as well as some festival picks and prestige movies that are coming out. I just saw Sean Baker's Anora, and that was a trip. You can see what I thought out in my Letterboxd account. You can follow me on Instagram at Movie Guy Matt, and to see what I'm up to and where I'm going movie wise. As well as I'm making a project with my friends called Dear Natty about a girl who's trying to make her rock star dreams come true with her friends. And it's a nice little web series about two girls in love.
Aw.
And we're actually raising money right now, and there will be a link to the GoFundMe in the links below.
Yep,
Help me and my friends make something pretty cool.
absolutely do that.
As always, you can find your host on Twitter, Blue Sky, Letterboxd, and Medium at LSR42. You can also find me on Tumblr at Football in Tuxedos with dashes between the words. This podcast can be found on both Spotify and YouTube under the same name. If you're watching us on YouTube, please feel free to give us a like, maybe a comment so I know what I'm doing wrong or right, and mostly so the YouTube algorithm will like us.
And thank you to both Justin and Matt for coming out tonight. I hope we'll see y'all next time for a movie that I mentioned a moment ago, you will never believe that I rolled this by accident for a December pick, but I did. It's 1947's Miracle on 34th Street.
What are the odds?
Very low. 4 in about 1,000, but I got it.
You can't write this stuff.
I couldn't. I looked at. I was like looking at my spreadsheet, and I was just like, "It's a December pick, and that's a Miracle. I got to do it. I got to do Miracle on 34th Street."
It's like Slumdog Millionaire. All the events of your life had culminated to this one moment of you picking a December film for December.
All of the. You fucking kidding me? That dude gets $1 million and I just get to watch Miracle on 34th Street in December? I already watch Miracle on 34th Street in December.
Yep, sorry, them's the breaks. It's like Dave's father says in the film. You need to be just a little miserable. Not completely miserable, but a little's all they ask for. So disappointment is endemic to the Midwestern life.
It's 2024, November 2024. I am completely miserable. Fuck you too, Dave's dad. And also fuck you, Danny Boyle. You won for your worst fucking movie. All right, that's it. I'm calling it there.